Alright, hi everyone. Thanks so much for Fishbrain and Oso and everyone for inviting me here. We talk about some work we've been doing in Canada, data we've collected actually over the last 35 years using nationwide angler surveys to quantify our recreational fisheries. And this is something that actually our Fisheries and Oceans Canada, which is a department of our federal government, has been collecting this data for the last 35 years, and me and my colleagues simply looked at the data over the long-term trends. So firstly, I just wanted to point out, I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this report that came out. It's from the UN. It came out in 2012, and it basically characterizing the global state of recreational fisheries right now. And the key point that comes out of this report is just how little we know about recreational fisheries on a global scale. Recreational fisheries are complex socio-ecological systems, and very few countries actually collect relevant information on all three, the biological, social, and economic factors of their fisheries, or dynamics of their fisheries. So today, I'd just like to highlight the value of doing so. So I'm from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, here in the interior. Canada we have a lot of real estate. We have tons of land, over 2 million lakes and rivers, freshwater lakes and rivers, vast coastlines. We have a lot of productive fisheries and a lot of different ecotypes. We have a range from warm water fisheries dominated by centrarchids, basses, and sunfish, to cold water fisheries with lake trout and grayling. So a lot of opportunity in Canada, also a big challenge to monitor and regulate our fisheries. So we're actually fortunate that we have a fairly extensive data set on the social, biological, and economic dynamics of our fisheries collected by Fisheries and Oceans. And they did this through male angler surveys in 5-year intervals starting in 1975. They basically sent out these male surveys to a random subset of licensed anglers. It had about 30 to 35,000 respondents each year. The surveys were conducted on a jurisdiction-specific basis. So every province and territory was responsible for implementing the survey in that region. And so there were a core set of questions that were asked relating to the demographics of the angler, the amount of effort they were fishing, what they were fishing for, what they were catching and harvesting. And then each region also had their own specific questions they added on whether anglers would be willing to contribute to certain conservation zones and things like that. So Fisheries and Oceans publishes these reports every 5 years online. You can find it on their website. It also comes out in paper. And so what we did for these reports, they're important. They provide a lot of important information in themselves every 5 years, but we never actually looked at the trends in recreational fisheries over the whole 35-year period before now. So first, how many anglers do we have and how much are they fishing? So for all these figures I'm showing you, resident anglers are in the light gray and our non-resident anglers in the dark. And this includes anglers fishing outside of their own jurisdiction or foreign anglers. So on average, we have about 4.5 million anglers, licensed anglers in Canada. But this number has declined quite a bit since 1975, 33%. Similarly, we're fishing an average of 60 million fishing days. But again, this number has declined significantly, 42% since 1980. So who are our anglers? It shows the mean angler age in the bars and the percentage of males in the lines. So the mean age, very similar to the U.S., is 41. But this, in 1975, however, this increased to 50 by 2010. So basically, we're having declining participation in our fisheries, and we're not recruiting young people into our fisheries, and this is a big problem. Similar to the U.S., our anglers are about 80% male, and this has remained static. And non-resident anglers tend to be older and more male-biased than our resident anglers. So this is pretty much a stereotypical angler in Canada.
But he's Norwegian.
So what are they catching? What are we catching and harvesting? We catch an average of 255 million fish nationwide, but similar to participation rates, catch rates have declined 42% since 1985. We didn't have data on catch in earlier years. And harvest has declined even more. We harvest 133 million fish, declined 75% since 1985. We also have information on species-specific catch and harvest. So we asked our anglers to report how many of each species they were catching and harvesting. Some species were actually able to get down to the species level. Northern pike, muskellunge, walleye, I'm sure many of these species you're familiar with. Anglers can easily identify these fish. However, there's other groups that were more general. People would report that they caught a bass. This could be smallmouth, largemouth bass, or other types of basses, white striped bass. Same with trout and char. Anglers have a hard time, especially inexperienced ones, telling the differences between these different type fish species. And so some of them have to be grouped a little bit more generally. But an interesting trend to point out here is that every species or group of species, so the white is the number caught and the gray is the number harvested. Every species that we practice a lot of catch and release with, we release the majority of our fish, has seen either consistent or increasing catches over time. However, the fish that we harvest at high levels, trout and char, smelt, cod, have all seen drastic population declines. You also might be familiar with the collapse of our cod fishery in the early 1990s, and you see this in the recreational fishing data. So just a few of some of our iconic fisheries. So again, catch is declining, so is harvest, but harvest is declining more rapidly. So the number of fish, the percentage of fish that are being released is increasing over time. We're releasing over 60% of the fish that we catch now in Canada. And this really highlights the importance of practicing best angling practices and minimizing the effects that we're having on these fish when we're releasing them so they can continue to grow and reproduce and contribute to the population. And I'm actually going to talk more tomorrow about best angling practices in catch and release. Again, non-resident anglers are releasing significantly more of their catch as well. With catch per unit effort, I just want to show that while participation and catch is declining, they're declining at the exact same rate. Our catch per unit effort has been almost static. And this, I also like to point out that this does not mean that our populations are all very healthy and remaining at the same level. There have been a number of high-profile declines in our fish populations. There's a paper that came out in 2002 in the journal Fisheries that sort of went over this. Some of our really high-profile fisheries, walleye, lake trout, rainbow trout, northern pike, that have experienced significant declines. And this wasn't really noticed in the recreational angling data. Due primarily to the complexities of angler behavior, anglers are able to target fish even more effectively, even though their populations are declining. Lack of long-term monitoring. We do have this long-term data set, but no one went into it and looked at it on a fine enough scale to realize that some of these fisheries were collapsing. And of course, angler catches are offset by our extensive stocking programs. Yeah.
Could you please explain the picture there? Do you know where it's from?
This was just the article of fisheries that this paper came out in.
Yeah, well, I mean the event.
Why are they so packed?
Yeah.
Oh,
what's happening?
I think this was just this is probably one of our salmon fisheries during the run, I would imagine.
Okay.
And it just highlights.
So it's that crowded.
It can be, yeah, in certain rivers. Yeah, so we have tons of land in Canada. We have so much water, but a lot of our population is condensed to the southern range of Canada. So there's some areas like where I'm from in Ontario where a lot of lakes have really high pressure, especially the salmon, Trinity salmon one, and steelhead. So again, angler expenditures, direct expenditures in billions, major purchases in billions. Similar trend to participation and catch rates. We have a peak in 1985, it declines to 2010. However, anglers still contribute an average of $8.8 billion a year to our economy through these means. This doesn't include licensing. So we we've been able to characterize our fisheries pretty well over the last 35 years in Canada. We have a pretty good idea of how many people are fishing, how many fish they're catching, how much they're contributing to our economy. A really major concern right now with Canadian fisheries is the decline in popularity, particularly with young people. So we need to try to figure out ways to try to promote our fisheries to young people. And I didn't realize it's right under my nose that all I need to do is use Angry Birds and fish brain. But I do think the fish brain, I love the idea, and I hope that people start to adopt it more in Canada. Yeah, and catch and release is increasing. So I hope that I've highlighted the value of collecting such information, especially over such a long term, providing information on all three social, economic, and biological dynamics of our fisheries. It allows you to form a direct connection between your natural resource and the economic value of it. And it provides good bargaining power to be able to say exactly how much your fishery is worth and what a specific fish species is worth. It also, of course, helps to inform management strategies, which fish are most important, which habitats to protect, which fish need to be stocked. I'd also like to point out that in doing the surveys in the way that we did, at the jurisdiction-specific way, we can actually mine data at a much more regional level, which is actually how we manage our fisheries. We manage them at the jurisdiction level. And so some people have actually gone into this data, for example in Ontario, and use this information in a more applied way to understand what different species people are angling for and what need to be stocked, and actually influences our regulations on more of a jurisdictional level. So all this information we just published. It's going to be coming out probably next month in the journal Fisheries. If you're interested in this information at all, of course I'd love to talk about it, and there's my email. Thanks for your attention.